Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Manifestation Mondays with River City Homebuyers. Hope everybody's off to a great start to their week and month 2 of quarter 1. So hopefully you've spent a few minutes reflecting on your first month's goals, what was met, what wasn't, where you fell short. So today I want to focus a little on focusing. I have been reading a book called Hyper Focus by Chris Bailey, and some very interesting points. And really, again, a lot of things are self-discipline and just being very aware. So he talks a lot about autopilot and how at least 40% of what we do every day, we do on autopilot, okay? We don't think about walking, chewing, a lot of tasks that we do, scrolling, probably a lot of social media time, just different things that are just on autopilot in our life. And autopilot is useful, right? We need that because that's what helps us keep up with the daily pace around us and the demands of everything that our personal and professional life demands from us every day. We live in a pretty fast-paced environment. But what about that other 60% of our focus and our attention? How deliberate are we? How intentional are we on where we focus? So one of the things that he talks about kind of right out of the gate is making sure the environment that you are in when you need to be focusing on a particular task, that environment is conducive to what you want to be focused on. So I know there's a lot of talk, a lot of things about one place, one purpose, right? So a lot of people suggest, a lot of authors and a lot of gurus and mentors say, you know, if there's a particular place that you sit for, you know, relaxation or fun activities, or, you know, to have your nightly glass of wine, that may not be the same spot to sit in to do productive work. I think there's some truth to that. However, I also think that choosing an environment where everything is going to be very readily available at your fingertips and very easily accessible is an important factor of that. Because really, he talks about catching your mind wandering, and we've done this in, you know, other Manifestation Monday sessions of mine, not particular to this author or this book, but just in general when I talk about habits, right? And catching yourself engaging in a habit that is not a good habit or a not productive habit, okay? Last week I brought up avoidance and how avoiding things that we don't want to do, that we're not comfortable doing, that take us out of our comfort zone, even though we know that they are necessary to grow ourselves or our business, the avoidance itself can become a habit. And so catching ourselves avoiding things, right? But this is even the next step where you're catching yourself before you even get to the habit, before you even get to the avoidance, where you're catching your mind wandering or your self diverting from the one thing that you were dedicated to focusing on at that time and getting sidetracked, allowing outside influences or internal ones to take you off your game, to distract you. Distractions are everywhere, okay? The external ones, probably a little bit easier to manage for the most part. I know for me, I can't work with noise or anything around, so I don't have the distraction of music playing or, you know, that type of thing. However, my phone does go off quite a bit. Text messages, phone calls, and I am pretty selective. This is something I am pretty good about. If I am intentionally focusing on a certain task at that time, I will choose very selectively and carefully whether or not to respond at that moment to a call or a text that's coming in. I also do not allow email notifications to just pop up. I deliberately choose when to go in and look at my inbox and kind of go through that. That's a good thing and a bad thing, because email tends to pile up and get buried in my inbox, because sometimes I just don't even get into that day. However, it allows me to choose what I'm working on and when I'm working on it. I still have a long way to go at getting really, really good at following a tight schedule. And I've got to get that much better so that I can be better and more productive and generating more revenue in my business, building my pipeline, just everything to do with that. But that is one area I'm pretty good at. So that is one distraction that you could consider maybe eliminating from your life, is the notification feature. I don't have social media notifications sent to my phone at all. I don't have email notifications sent to my phone. The only thing that automatically comes to my phone is a text or a call, because otherwise it would literally, my day would be inundated and I would never be able to focus deliberately or intentionally on one thing for any sustainable amount of time, because I would just constantly be being interrupted. So, one of the tools is that he suggests in this book is that you start tracking distractions. You start tracking how frequently your mind wanders off of what you are focusing on at that moment. So as you're doing whatever it is that you've scheduled yourself to do, have a notepad next to you. And not only do you jot down, like, you're not just taking a tally of how many times or even how frequently your mind wanders, but also what did your mind wander to, and what were you actually specifically engaged in doing, whatever, when it wandered. And then you start to evaluate and analyze that also. You look back at that and you think, is there a pattern here? Does my mind tend to wander more when I'm doing something I consider tedious? Again, let's go back to the avoidance, because I feel like there's a connection here, right? Is my mind wandering when I would rather be avoiding whatever that task is? Does it happen more when I'm doing a task that I would like to avoid doing? So one of the things that I don't really like to do and I would rather avoid, do I find my mind wandering and getting distracted more? Am I kind of subconsciously trying to pull myself away from that activity more so than other things over here? And then also, what's causing it to wander, right? Is it internal? And is it my comfort zone, my feelings, my emotional attachment to that particular task? Is it that I really have this other thing that's unsettled, that's really at the forefront of my mind, and it's stopping me from being able to give full concentration to really any other task at the time? And this lends itself to not only really good self-awareness and the ability to become very deliberate in your focus and your time and your scheduling, and what you typically avoid but know that you can't. It helps with the habit building, and it brings all of that together. It also makes you much better at communication, because as you're focusing on your mind wandering and you start doing this regularly, it can really come into play with how you are at communicating. As human beings, a lot of times when we're engaged in a discussion, a conversation with someone else, our automatic thing, especially if you're kind of a sharp-minded person, is we tend to already start formulating a response in our minds before the person is even done talking about what they're talking about and expressing their thought. And what happens there is we become less effective as listeners. Our intentionality in listening to the message suffers because it's being kind of sabotaged by us already formulating what we're going to say in response. You cannot give your full attention to more than one thing at a time. I'll say it again. You cannot. No human being can give full, deliberate attention to more than one thing at a time. There is no thing as true multitasking, not efficient multitasking, not where you're really giving full or deliberate attention to both things. In order for you to be doing more than one task at a time, at least one of them has to be on autopilot. It has to be with automaticity, okay? Only one of the activities that you do can be something that requires deliberate intentionality. So you can't be listening intentionally and intently and deliberately and fully. You can't be giving your full attention to the speaker if you're already formulating a response in your mind, because neither one of those can happen on autopilot. You cannot intentionally give attention to more than one of the tasks that you schedule for yourself to do, unless you can't do that with full intentionality and full attention. One of them would have to be on autopilot. So my challenge to you this week, grab yourself a notebook. First of all, set yourself up for success, right? Make sure that the environment you're working on is going to allow you to focus the bulk of your attention on whatever the task or job is that you're going to be doing in that environment. And then as you're doing it, catch yourself. If you get distracted, if your mind wanders somewhere, don't just write down when it happened, but write down not only what were you thinking about when it happened, what were you doing when it happened, what do you think is causing it? Is there a pattern there? Go back and look at it, just like you go back and review and evaluate other things. It's going to help you become more intentional with your focus. It's going to help you accomplish more in your day. And it's going to help you take more things out of autopilot that you don't want there. And it's going to help you trim the fat. It's going to help you get rid of the distractions that are sabotaging you and really focus on the things that you want to get done, and you will accomplish much more. I would love to hear anybody's comments, feedback posted underneath this video in the comment section. Please share if you've done this and you've seen a result, or maybe after watching this you decide to give it a try and you catch yourself. Please share. It is so important for us to engage in some dialogue about how these tools become helpful to you and to your business. Hope you have a great week. We'll see you next Monday.